Good afternoon, everybody. Today is the 9th of January, 2021, and you could be watching this on many different channels. This is J. Cleveland Payne, as it says in the bottom corner, my Twitter handle, at J. Cleveland Payne, main Twitter handle, I should say. And what we're going to do today is we're going to give you a little insight of some stuff I do. Now, on Saturdays, I spend the morning up to early afternoon working on live radio shows and doing some radio production today. Knocked out a couple commercials, a couple things as well. And then when I get a little alone time, when the studio gets quiet, I do a couple things and then knock out a couple podcasts while I'm here, because it's a nice, quiet place. Everything's good and everything is kind of clear. So what we're doing right now is, what I'm about to do right now for the next hour or so, is the weekly wrap-up podcast. This is the podcast that goes along with This is the Conversation Project. This is where I go through the top 10 stories from the past week that we've put out on the social media that you guys or people out there who follow This is the Conversation on Facebook and th_conversation on Twitter get a chance to be a part of. They literally vote on this by engaging with the stories. So what I'm going to do right now, it's not a straight to live type of thing I do, because it just isn't. But I'm going to do the format as it is, and we're going to start recording the show in just a few minutes. So you'll get a chance to see me do this. I did some kind of elaborate stuff over to this side here, where you see these monitors over here. Here's the recording where we'll be recording the actual thing, and I'll pull it back from the audio here so it's ready to go. I could pull it off of the video and then kind of splice it, but then it's there. But there'll be some fits and some starts and stops and things going on, because I'll mess things up and I'll back up and redo it. I'll forget some things. I'll have to stop and pull up some websites and read some pieces. And so there's a lot of stuff going on there. This is why it's not live to tape. I do have help on this podcast. There are some people who help me manage some things on this one, but for the most part, the posting on the daily part, the creating of the listing that comes out every week and every day, Monday through Friday, for the newsletter, I should say, and just going through all this stuff is done by me. So it's really a kind of a piecemeal. Although I do monitor the stories on the week, so most cases I know what's going on. Sometimes I decide I want to go deeper into it. Sometimes I'm surprised by a story that pops up, so I have to literally read it from the list, or I don't want to miss out something. And this week, I wanted to make this a little extra special because of the stories that's going on. I'm doing something a little bit different. If you're not a regular listener to the actual podcast, what I'm going to do, normally we do some commentary. We talk about the stories as we count them up, or count them down, if you will. Because the story at number 2, and since you're watching the video, here's your spoiler alert. The number 2 story is basically everything wrapping around the Capitol insurgency that happened on Wednesday. Because it's such a big story, even though it's not the top story, I'm going to spend a little extra time with that story today. So I may take the video from this and move the mic around so I can be seen a little better and work on that. So I may use that for something else going forward. I may pause it a little second and do something dramatic so I can use that for something going forward. The number 1 story, I'm not going to spoil, but once you see or hear, based on how you take this in, what it is, you will be as spitting mad as I am, or maybe you won't be. We can discuss that. As far as the conversation goes, we can talk about anything along the lines of these stories, or any news stories. You can email the conversation inbox at gmail.com. You can @ me on Twitter at @th_conversation. You can reply to things inside of Facebook. Look for This is the Conversation. I'll try to put those things in the show notes later on. I've got a busy evening coming up, and of course I have to actually edit this podcast, although it's not quite straight to live. Most of the stuff will be kind of trimmed in the meantime. Not the best editing possible. It's just a time thing. All this news was captured yesterday, and a backup from the past week. So it literally is old news by the time I get a chance to do this. If you have been following this podcast for quite some time, you know that way back in the day when we started this, part of the mission of doing this was using this to have conversations with people. And then we would have a interview with someone who would then sort of pick a story. We'd kind of throw them out at random, and they would kind of eliminate them till they got a chance to talk about a story. They talk about themselves, but they have a chance to talk about a specific story, and we get insight on somebody on the news as they perceive it. And with the twist being they don't know exactly what it is they'll be talking about, but they get a chance to pick from it, but they get a chance to eliminate stories. So there might be something they really want to talk about, but they have to pick against something they really, really, really want to talk about. Hopefully we'll have a chance to do that again. Right now it's literally timing and getting things done. So if you want to help contribute to this thing here, you can do a couple things. You can email me and let me know what you'd like to contribute. You can go to thisisaconversation.com/partnerships. There's a couple things there that allow you to see how to partner with us. You can go to our website or sign up for our newsletter or follow us in the feeds and click on any link that you see that's for an affiliate thing, for a salesy thing. Those are affiliate that we get a little bit of cut from being the people that bring them to you. We pick the best that we can, things that will take care of you. And if they take care of you, we get taken care of as well. And one way that I don't think is on a sponsorship page, we have a couple different ways, is to go to buymeacoffee.com/JClevelandPayne. You can also go to ko-fi.com/JClevelandPayne because it's two different competing things, coffee and coffee. And you can basically just buy me a cup of coffee. So we're going to adjust this slightly. I'm going to adjust the computer slightly. I still need to be able to read it. There we go. So I get more meat into it. And in just a few minutes, literally in about a minute, we're going to go with this. I can still read the screen from here. So I can, since I'm mostly looking at the computer there, I can read the screen from there and go for that. If you want to comment, please feel free to comment wherever you're seeing this. This platform tells me that I can read comments from everywhere, but that's not exactly true in the real time. So I have to go this way. That's not exactly true in real time. So I will reach out to you or at least come back and like and love it in the back end. But let me know, although it won't make any difference out there, how the sound is going for you guys out there. I'm now rolling on sound over here so I can see it and it looks good. So we're going to be good for that. Let me know how the sound is for you guys inside the thing. And as it said in the description, I burp a lot. I tend to swallow a lot of air in my talks. So if I'm doing live stuff, I tend to talk much, much slower because to try to keep from doing that. So there'll be a lot of stops because I'll mess things up. I'll hear clicks, mouth clicks, and I will have to stop and burp. And I don't have necessarily, this isn't really a pause or dump button or a mute button to work and kind of go with it. Since we're not going live, it's a different sort of pacing. So there you have it. As I said, comment if you like, don't comment if you don't like, but let me know how it's going and you can get a chance to see the innards of how this thing works out. And hopefully you'll go back and listen to the actual full produced recording, the modularized recording, so you get the full effect of what happens between the raw stuff and the here stuff. So you won't hear any music, won't hear any transitions. Basically, I'm just going to kind of stop, start, because like I said, this is how it goes. So we're going to start this thing in now. For the first episode of the podcast, for the first full week, literally first full week of what's going on here in 2021. There we go. Already burping. As I said yesterday in the Bubble Friday, although that's bubbling water, stay carbonated, stay hydrated. Already burping. I'm sorry. I'm already burping. All right. So when we're not messing things up, we are rolling on the audio. And right now, and this is why they don't call me One Take Jay, because I take 12 takes. On the first podcast for the year, covering literally the first 7 days of the year, the cutoff story, the story we won't talk about, is a story I would love to get into. Alvin Kamara fined $5,000 for red and green cleats in Vikings game. Friday, the first of the year, we posted that one. That, of course, happened on the big game happening on Christmas, but came back again. It took a while for them to get the fine in and a while for us to get the story posted. And you guys responded to it well, but not quite well enough to call it a top 10 story. So we'll get to the stories that you said were the most important here, going from 10 to 1. Also going into the story we call the almost irrelevant story of the week. That's the story at the very, very bottom. And it's at the bottom because it's usually very late. And spoiler alert, the number 2 story this week is a big time story, or I should say lots of big time stories. So we'll explain how super stories work when we get to that one. And there'll be extra commentary because we're going to talk about that one and the number 1 story, which may make you hot or may not. We'll get there and we'll get to that here on the weekly wrap up with Jay Cleveland Payne for the week ending January the 9th, 2021. And welcome to the show. My name is Jay Cleveland Payne. This show is called the Weekly Wrap Up because it is a weekly wrap up of news stories that were published inside of the feed, a part of the Conversation Project, found at thisistheconversation.com. Now, what we do at the Conversation Project is we try to find the best stories and best news articles, the best things to talk about, and you tell us why they are the best things to talk about and what exactly they are. We don't focus on Wolf Blitzer or Jonathan Capehart, who I love his new show, but it's not about what he thinks are the top stories. It literally is about what you think they are. And so how we do this is we put them out there every 50 minutes or so on Twitter and Facebook. Look for us online on Twitter at @TH_conversation, and Facebook, search for This Is a Conversation. We're the blue speech bubble looking thing. When you see those things, make sure you like us. On Facebook, make sure we're set as a default in your feed so you see us more often. And then just as you do your normal social media stuff, maybe you're backing away because of what happened this week, like us, love us, hate us, respond to the stories that you see in the headlines throughout the day. The higher engagement rate a story gets, the higher score it gets. We literally take the score from midnight on Friday to about 5 a.m. on Friday, put them into a spreadsheet, and we take the Twitter and the Facebook and we put them all together. And then we have one big true score. And from there, we rank them top to bottom. Top means this is number 1 story of the week. Bottom means number 200 this week, 200 distinct different postings. Although we'll get to a little bit later how that's not exactly how it works out. When things come up to be ties, we'll talk about in a second, the story that is the youngest that got there first gets the higher spot. When things are basically updates to things, we'll put them together so they don't take up so much space, and that usually moves them up quite a bit into the numbers. We have, spoiler alert, 2 super stories like that got moved up because it combined, and 1 tie. We'll explain how to break those in a bit. But that's all the basic stuff about how this thing works out. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast if you just now found it. We are basically anywhere your pods are found, and you want a full listing of a click to go to our website, thisistheconversation.com. This podcast powered by you. So that same website, thisistheconversation.com, click on the partnerships banner, and you can find a way to help us keep things going. If you don't want to be a full-time partner, if you see any ad inside of any of our platforms, any of our products, that being our daily newsletter or 5 days a week newsletter, the podcast right here, or things on the website as well, you can click those links, and it's an affiliate link. If you like what they have and they take care of you some way, we get a little cut from that. So we do appreciate all you do to help things going right there. And of course, the best way you support us is to make sure you are subscribed, share with other folks, and talk to me about what we're doing. Good, bad, yay, nay. Email us at theconversationinbox@gmail.com. So without further ado, let's get to the story that's listed at number 10 this week. All right, so I paused this thing, the recording thing, and I need to pull up the story because I want to read a little bit about it. The headline is not misleading. Well, we'll get to the headline. The headline is the opener, but the story actually grew as the week went. So I want to get the update to it. As I said, this is how it goes. It's not straight to tape necessarily. It's basically piecemeal by piecemeal, making this thing work out. Thank you so much for anybody who's popped in and who's watching this. For people who don't really do stuff like this, I guess seeing how hard it is, how detailed it is, makes a difference. People think you flip a switch and just start talking, and that's literally not the case. Like I said, this is a news story. I'm going over a bunch of news stories, so I have to actually go to copy. If this were done properly, there'd be somebody writing these things out as a script, so it's easier to manage. But like I said, sometimes it's not about properly. Sometimes it's about just getting it done. So I'm going to hit the record and go back into talking. And I've actually taken it off the camera, so I can't see myself at this point. This is basically me doing this as normal. I have to remember that, oh, by the way, I do have this camera going on. So hopefully I don't do something like I normally would, like pick my nose or something like that. Chances are I will do that, but here we go. At number 10, the headline we posted, Texas head football coach Tom Herman has been fired. Saturday, the 2nd of January is the day we posted this one with a bump in response. That means this story had more response than the previous story. They cut off at 11, also a football story, just ironically, by 6.17%. What happened? Well, pretty simple. He got fired. Tom Herman was fired as a head football coach of the Texas Longhorns. Let me read from the story because it got really, really interesting really quick. Steve Sarkisian, a former head coach at Washington and USC, who is coordinating the nation's number 2 scoring offense this season at Alabama, is expected to be named the new head coach at Texas, replacing Tom Herman, multiple sources told Horns 247. Herman, who has a $15 million buyout for his final 3 years of his Texas contract, was notified by Texas on Saturday that he wouldn't be retained as coach, sources told Horns 247. Herman went 32-18 in 4 seasons at Texas, including a 7-3 record this year, in which the Longhorns got off to a 1-2 start in the Big 12 play, causing the school's top donors to put pressure on UT's administrators to pursue 3-time national champion coach Urban Meyer beginning in October. Now, obviously, Urban Meyer's not going to that job. Sources or rumors have him going to some other things. So they didn't get the big coach that they're shooting for, but they got rid of the coach who didn't do too bad. Tom Herman going 7-3 in a COVID year is not necessarily a bad thing, but it wasn't college championship level stuff. So they're taking Steve Sarkisian, who has got his hands tied right now in Alabama's game on Monday, because he, of course, is coordinating for Alabama, and they're in the game on Monday, the national championship game. But he's got a new gig. It's basically done. And the early part, I would say we had, was that Steve, well, not so much as Sarkisian was being hired. That was the update from Horns 247, the source, obviously. But that Tom Herman no longer coaching at the University of Texas. What you're about to hear is me going ahead and making the space to trim the 2 up so I don't have to go back later. There's a little bit of a gap between the start and stop, so I'm going to take a little bit out of there, and then I'm going to upload the next story. As I said, this takes a little time to get in. It normally runs about 35 minutes all total, the way the format is now, but today will be a little long because we're going to commentary on number 2, and it takes a little over an hour on a good day because I'm stopping and starting. It's at the conversation inbox at gmail.com. So without further ado, let's get to the story that's listed at number 10 this week. At number, so you can't see me doing this. I'm doing, and the main reason I'm doing this on a different computer is I don't want one to crash. So I'm taking some of the silence out in between the goes, and I'm going to go ahead and save it now so I don't lose any data. And I can't see you or see any comments, so I will get back to you with comments later on. This is not the livest of live shows. It takes a lot of work, and I don't have it set up as well as I should, as I say. But like I said, it takes a lot of time to make this thing work out. And so I give thanks to my very beloved wife who waits for me to come home after my long day here doing radio stuff, because I'm doing long stuff here, personal stuff. So I thank her very much for all that and just putting up with that stuff. So the next story is loading, and once it's loaded, I'm going to read from it as well. Actually, I'm going to. Luckily, this is well, let me get to it. We have a lot more Trumpy stuff to come. Trust me, we have a lot more Trumpy stuff to come. But this story is a standalone by itself Trumpy thing. So we put it by itself, and it came up as number 9 this week because you said so. Posted on Tuesday, the 5th of January, the story has a bumper response of 22.09% from the 10 story. Our headline we posted was this: lawyer quits firm after supporting Trump on phone call seeking to overturn Biden's win in Georgia. Our source for this is CNBC, but of course, all over the place. It's amazing that it seems like we've gone a full decade in 1 year for 2020 and a full decade in 1 week in 2021. Believe it or not, it was just last weekend when we were talking about the phone call. And that was President Trump talking to the Secretary of State of Georgia, asking, begging, rambling about getting him to overturn the Georgia election and pull it in his favor. Just literally saying, like, basically, dude, you know what? These people want resolutions, and you can do that. And the Secretary of State saying, well, sir, we really can't do that. Now, the lawyer in question was a lawyer that was literally on the phone with Donald Trump as this went on. That lawyer's name is Cleta Mitchell, a partner with the firm of Foley and Lardner. Basically, the firm investigating her involvement with Trump in the call, and essentially because of, some people have consciences and have to deal with the consequences of stuff. She resigned, back down from the whole thing, part of the blowback of what was going on. You can get more details of the story by going to our website, thisistheconversation.com. Click the link for this week's podcast, which is for the week ending January the 9th, 2021. We have a link to all the stories that we talk about and even the ones we don't talk about. Stories going from 11 to 200 or 199 this week. You can see them all by going to the website. There's a link to all the stories, not just a full link. Well, you'll go to the website. You'll find it. You'll see it. It's right there for you. Wasn't quite prepared for the next one, so I'm going to go ahead and take out some spacing here and then prepare for the next one. Actually, I was, but University of Texas. That's why it takes so long, because you're doing your stuff. Yeah, we're going to do stuff. I'm going to actually, since I'm paused, I'm going to pull up the story at number 7 and have it ready to go. Now, number 8 and number 7 are tied. You'll hear me explain what's the big deal with that when I get to the stories. But since number 8 is pretty much a quick and fluffy one, don't need big details. That's not good. And sometimes, because of the way I'm working on stuff, there it is. The link didn't populate properly. I do want to read from this one for number 7. It's a pretty big deal. Okay, so let's go back to here. And yes, I have in front of me the script, and in front of me in the computer screen the actual same script. So I'm reading from the same piece. I can go back and forth, luckily, and there's stuff in the back this week that's kind of important. But like I said, this is a process, a pretty big, detailed process. If you jump out and jump in, I appreciate you being here for the time you have. This is a live recording of the weekly wrap-up show for this week. We're only at number 8, and I don't know, I'll go to the video right now. Behind the scenes. We've been recording for 24 minutes, so I'm not sure how far 24 minutes, well, I think I started about 10 minutes in. So, yeah, for a 30-minute podcast, it takes an hour and a half to get it done. And I haven't, well, yes, I did stop to burp at least once. So there's that. A lot of ums. Yeah, a lot of ums. Ums are placeholders in the mind, so they just make things work out. Thank you for watching How the Sausage is Being Made. Let's get on with the recordings. We have a tie this week. 2 stories that were posted literally the same day came out with the same number of responses. And so the story that is the younger that got there first is a story that gets top billing. That's number 7. One posted around 9 in the morning. One posted around 4 in the afternoon. The 9 a.m. story rolls like this. Sandra Lee starts cleanse after gaining 30 pounds last year. Tuesday, the 5th of January, we posted this one. Bumper response of 51.483%. So that many more people cared about Sandra Lee and her cleanse. Now, this is an interesting story. It's essentially an infomercial for the cleanse that she uses. We won't go into that. If you're curious about it, just search her because it was all over the internet. This story literally was everywhere. We pulled it from MSN's aggregator because we found it. And like I say often, I've got to fill 24 hours worth of stories. So it went in there, and someone actually replied, a few people actually replied in various ways, basically asking, why is this a story? Why does anyone care? Some people replied back, well, basically it's just an infomercial type thing because she's basically talking about the cleanse she used specifically. And I got some great response for the fact that I actually responded to people on this one, essentially doing my mea culpa. I've got to fill a story every 50 minutes. That's 6 stories every hour, and that's just how it times out for every 50 minutes. And so if I'm on track, there are usually about 230 different stories posted within the time frame that we allot. We trim them down in some cases as well, but we have to fill this thing up to see what comes out. And the only other explanation I have is I literally went and searched it when people were talking about this, and this story was everywhere. It was on basically everybody's website. So sometimes I post things that seem kind of silly, or sometimes I post things that pop up as trending that I don't understand. And sometimes I just post random things that just look like, hey, I got to fill it with something. I have not seen this yet. And they take off. People care about Sandra Lee because she's the cooking lady. She's a lady that chunks a bunch of wine while she's cooking on TV. And she used to date a governor of New York, Cuomo. Yes, she used to date him for quite some time. In fact, we had a story a few weeks back about her selling the house she used to live in with Cuomo because people care about that type of stuff. And that's why Sandra Lee was posted. That's why you guys deemed her important enough to make number 8. Now, not quite important enough. Well, I guess just as important enough to make number 7, which is kind of ironic. But because they're exactly the same number of responses, the reason why number 7 is one spot higher is because it was posted, as I said, around 4 o'clock in the afternoon on that same day, Tuesday the 5th. This one, a much more serious headline. No charges against Kenosha police in Jacob Blake's shooting. The bumper response, as we said, because it's tied with number 8, is 51.43 from the number 9 story. Let me read you from the story, the source we pulled from USA Today, because this one is a heartbreaker. And we want to make sure you get the actual gist of it, not just me rambling about it for a few moments. The Kenosha, Wisconsin police officer who shot Jacob Blake in August will not be criminally charged, Kenosha County District Attorney Michael Gravely announced Tuesday. Neither the officer who fired shots, Rustin Shinsky, nor any others will be charged, Gravely said during a Tuesday news conference. Gravely said his decision was based on evidence that could not be seen on cell phone video of the incident, which showed Shesky shooting Blake, 29, as he got into a vehicle with his children inside. Blake, who was shot in the back, was left paralyzed. The video, which was widely shared on social media, sparked protests, vandalism, and arson. A jury would be required to examine the evidence from the officer's point of view, Gravely said. It is incontrovertible that Blake was armed with a knife when he was shot. Incontrovertible. Sorry about that, and that's in air quotes. Gravely said he described it as a, quote, razor blade type knife, unquote, and said Blake admitted possessing it. You can go deeper into this story by clicking the link at our website, thisisconversation.com, for this week's podcast. week ending January the 9th, 2021. Almost slipped on that one. Or you can basically search this story because this is a large, huge story that was posted on Tuesday that was obviously overshadowed by things happening on Wednesday. We will get to that in quite a bit. But this one was a big deal. Email me at theconversationinbox@gmail.com to chat on this one. We got so much stuff to cover that I don't want to get bogged down just in time-wise. But this is a story that deserves more talk, deserves more thought about it and unpack it because of the year we had last year and what was at the time the beginning of the year, what we saw going forward. We obviously have bigger problems in America right now. Not like this is not a big problem, but we have bigger problems that must be addressed, at least at the moment, as opposed to these things that sort of stew like this story here. At number 6 is our first super story of the week. And super stories are where we have a headline that when we look into the higher ranks of the stories and we put updates to headlines and that essentially are the same thing, we put them together so they're not just sort of mingling around. It usually moves things up slightly. And this is one where the headline, the top headline, was essentially right where it was based on just how things rolled out. Is a combination of 3 different stories because it's been that kind of a week. The final headline that we're talking about here is Tanya Roberts dies at 65 after premature death announcement. Posted on Tuesday, the 5th of January as well. Bump in response from the 7-8 tie of 10.69%. Now, what exactly did we do? Well, we posted the original announcement of her death over the weekend, and then we posted the announcement that she wasn't actually dead the next day, and then we posted the announcement that she was actually dead the day after that. So the original announcement coming on the weekend, which had all sorts of hashtags, including RIP Midge, because Tanya Roberts, of course, famously known for playing a Bond girl back in the 80s, reviving her career for that 70s show as playing Midge on that 70s show, and people were showing their respects to that. We didn't get a lot of word about what the deal was, what exactly happened. And the weirdness thing was she went into the hospital. Her rep went around saying that she died because her boyfriend believed that she was dead. Boyfriend found out she wasn't actually dead, but was in very bad condition. Her rep, while talking on a TV show, found out literally live on TV she was alive and was kind of like a thank God thing. And then basically within the next 12 to 16 hours, she actually passed. So our actual heartfelt condolences go out to Tanya Roberts, her friends, her family, her boyfriend, the people that worked with her because of her loss of her life there. But it was a weird story for what was turning out to be a very odd week as it was going on. And that was only Tuesday. It got a whole lot weirder 24 hours from that event. At number 5, the story we got from the New York Post this week, at least our version from the New York Post, on Tuesday, the 5th as well. Very busy day on Tuesday. Like I said, getting weird. A bump in response of 3.41% from the story at number 6. The headline is, Kim Kardashian and Kanye West are getting a divorce. Now, we don't actually know that Kim Kardashian and Kanye West are getting a divorce. These are from those sources who always pop up in these things. But the sources say she's done. And the sources also say that Kanye is kind of burnt out on the Kardashians as well. Kanye wasn't all that keen with the literal lifestyle that was always being recorded via the nature of the reality star's life. And Kim Kardashian wants to go to law school. She wants to fight crime and fight for injustice. She wants to be this big name player, essentially following in the footsteps of her father, you know, the OJ thing notwithstanding. But she's got this albatross that is Kanye West being Kanye West. So we're not sure how real these things are. And, of course, Kim Kardashian married one semi-famous guy that didn't work out so well. This guy, really, really famous, and that's not quite working out so well. We will see how this thing actually plays itself out going forward. But in the meantime, we hope that because we love love. All right, I'm stopping this for just a minute because of that smack. Because I stop and start, I'm going to go back and fill in the gap at that point where we cut it off, take some of the space out for the transition, and take that smack out because that smack was loud. Go to the website, you'll find it, you'll see it. It's right there for you. We have a tie this week. How about that? Throwing my voice. Smacking again. So stay hydrated. Not so much limber, but hydrated. Interesting, boring, somewhere in between. I don't know how you get in between that. Let me know in the comments. Email me at theconversationinbox@gmail.com or jclevelandpayne@gmail.com, the main website, the main email address, I should say. So I don't like that. Like we hope. This is why you wear your headphones when you record, and you have some sort of mechanism where you can listen to yourself. Here in the studio, things pipe back so you can monitor it, obviously, by a microphone or interface that gives you that sense, or set yourself up with some sort of makeshift board that gives you some return if you can. This is why you do that, because you can catch those things, and it means less editing going forward. But in the meantime, or less surprises in editing. It should be not so much less editing. I should edit more. Here comes a burp. I actually cut the mic off there because that last one was kind of loud. So to remind myself where I was, this thing actually plays itself out going forward. But in the meantime, really, really famous, and that's not quite working out so well. We will see how this thing actually plays itself out going forward. Cut it back a little bit more and then go over here. We will see how this thing plays out in actuality going forward, because the revolution will be televised or live streamed or something. But in the meantime, we hope the best for the couple, that they find some resolution, because we love love, and for the kids, because they don't need that sort of craziness. Although they'll be able to afford plenty of counseling going forward. At number 4, another football story, oddly enough. Tom Brady threw several shovel passes to Antonio Brown at end of game so that Brown could cash in on $250K bonus. Read that 3 times fast. Monday, the 1st of January, this day we posted that one, bumping response from the Kim Kardashian Kanye West story of 10.99%. This is a quick one, a quirky one, but showing that Tom Brady is a team player, and even if the team does revolve around Tom Brady. At the end of a meaningless game on last Sunday, at least for Tampa Bay, they were in the playoffs and their spot was essentially clinched. Antonio Brown was 3 passes short of getting a bonus. So what happens late in the fourth quarter, literally in the last couple minutes, when they realized what was happening, Tom Brady's still out there playing. The game is meaningless. Antonio Brown's out there playing. The game is meaningless. They're winning because they're winning. And so a couple shuffle passes, 3 to be exact, just out to Antonio Brown to add to hit the money, and literally hit the money. A $250K bonus, $250,000 bonus went to Antonio Brown because Tom Brady was a doll in this case. So for those haters of Tom Brady, here's one less reason for that. Although there are still many other reasons to keep hating him if you already do. And I'm not going to push you off on that one. This one, another sports story, but a basketball story and an interesting story in itself. Here we go. All right, I know the story, but I'm going to go ahead and trim up that hole from the last story from Kanye and whatever, just to double check that, and pull this story up because I want to go deeper. There's some details in it that now that I think about it, because they don't need that sort of craziness. Although they'll be able to afford plenty. I probably should have waited to do that. So now I'll try to take out a little space in that gap, and now I forgot where it was, so I'm not even going to deal with that. All right, so I'm going to pull up this story. And for those of you who are popping in and out because I can't see you, I'm not ignoring you. I only have one screen on a laptop in front of me that has the web and the recording going. Also, a copy of the spreadsheet you see here so I can read off of it and go back and forth based on what I'm doing. So I'm not ignoring you. Wherever you're watching this on the multiple platforms, this is a live recording of the weekly wrap-up for the 9th day, first month, year 2021, the first full week of the year. And these are the stories that are happening. Now, coming up literally in a moment, your spoiler alert about all the stuff that happened in the Capitol on Wednesday. That's the number 2 story, but stories. I explained the super story a bit earlier with Tanya Roberts' details. These are a bunch of stories that were literally floating around in the top 25 that we pulled together. And the ironic part about this is the top story in the listing basically had this at a 3, at the number 3 story this week. Combined with all the stories, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 headlines, only shifted it up to 2, and not by that much, because this story at number 3 was a big deal, and the story at number 1, which was posted, which had an update to it, which is probably actually I don't even have the update in there. I'm rambling at this point. But the story at number 1, which was posted early in the week, and I don't even have the update to this in this thing, was such a big story on its own. Like I said, crazy week. So we're gonna get the recording going. We're gonna read the story at number 3 and keep on going. I don't think I actually need to pull any things from going forward, except for the story at number 200. That's the almost relevant story. We'll pause when we need to get to that one. So I'm going to refresh myself and see. I think I just said, here we go. Story in itself. Here we go. There we go. Good enough. Your headline reads, Boston University Terriers, Holy Cross Crusaders to both wear masks during Tuesday's basketball game. Monday is when we posted this one, the 4th day of January. Bump in response from the number 4 story, Tom Brady story, 154.46%. This one was a big one. I'm going to read you from the story, and then I'll slightly go into the details. This is one I thought I'd have more time to talk about until the number 2 the debacle happened, because this one is a really, really big deal. Boston University and Holy Cross will both wear masks for Tuesday's men's college basketball game, a Boston University spokesperson told ESPN. The game is believed to be the first in men's college basketball this season in which both teams will be wearing masks on the court. Stadium reported Monday morning that Boston University had mandated that all of its opponents wear masks during games on BU's campus. The Terriers and Holy Cross also play each other on Monday, but that game is on Holy Cross's campus, meaning only BU will be wearing masks during the game. The Patriot League canceled non-conference games this season, so Monday's game will be the first of the season for both Boston University and Holy Cross. The Terriers and Crusaders are scheduled to face each other 6 times this season. The only Patriot teams to play non-conference games were Army and Navy, which were eligible because of the Service Academy's exemption. Okay, so this game happened at 2 p.m. on Tuesday on ESPN Plus. And so the big real deal on this one, I have to say it quickly because there's not so much time for everything else, is the fact that the biggest knock for athletics being played right now is that we're asking everyone to wear masks, and athletes are saying they can't wear masks. Big deal for the NFL in the last couple of weeks was the changes to the rules, because so many people were essentially not following it, was the fact that while players in the field obviously not wearing masks, coaches and all personnel were supposed to be wearing masks on the sidelines. That turned into a big thing that turned to more enforcement. But now all players, anybody on the sidelines, are wearing masks. So a player, as soon as they take off their helmet and sit down, is handed a mask or grabs the mask they have in their little pouch or whatever, and has to be wearing a mask to whatever effect going on while the game's going on, while they're not in the game. That was a football thing. Basketball, the argument is they can't run up and down the court with a mask. Well, many colleges are doing it, and here's a case where both teams will be doing it as mandated by Boston University. I think it said Boston College in my rambling, so apologies for that. Boston University. What do you think about that one? email me at theconversationinbox@gmail.com, and we can chat this one up because this is one I really want to talk about. A big deal. I'm a big basketball fan. Big deal on this one. But the next story is going to take up so much headspace. It'll probably drive you as insane as it drove me as it happened real time. So we're going into the super story that is the debacle that happened on Wednesday. Here's the main headline that we're using to mark the place of what happened. Capitol goes into lockdown as Trump supporters breach barriers and clash with law enforcement while Congress debates election challenges. Business Insider is the place we got this, but yeah, it was everywhere. Wednesday, the 6th of January, 2021, another day that's going to live in infamy. This story gets a bumper response from the 3-story of 9.53%. Like I said, however, this story was basically at number 3. The reason why it's at number 2, and what's weird about it, the top story was weird about it, is that we combined that story plus 5 other headlines that were within the top 20, 25, so they wouldn't just be floating around there to see what would happen. The other headlines include: woman shot dead after armed Trump supporters stormed the Capitol as lawmakers gathered to certify Biden's win. World leaders condemn scenes as at U.S. Capitol building. Trump cabinet members discussing involving 25th Amendment, sources say. There's a burp. I told you there'd be burps. When I say there'll be burps, there'll be burps. Here we go. Your headline was not too bad. 25th Amendment, sources say. I cut it off before the burp, so that's good. 25th Amendment, sources say. The update to the story on the woman being shot, identity of woman shot and killed inside the Capitol confirmed, U.S. Capitol. A lot of reading. And MSNBC's Joe Scarborough drops F-bomb, calls for arrest of Trump, Giuliani after Capitol mob. Those all posted within a day or so of what was happening there. So basically Wednesday it started. These other stories posted about basically between later Wednesday and Thursday. I don't think there were any Friday stories. I cut off the date when I copied the information for the actual stories that were there. But 6 stories combined moved this story from being number 3. And there's a lot of space because of the big jump from the 4 to the 3, basically 150 or 154, 155% from between those two. There was plenty of space in between there, but the 6 stories combined only jumped this story up by another 10%. When we get to the number 1 story, it's you won't be shocked why it's so high, but you'll be shocked just the sheer amount of volume you had to get past to get there. So let's talk about this for a second. I was literally out of words within a few hours of watching this. My good friends, I'll say, from the In the Black podcast, actually, Big O and the crew there actually went live a day early and had an extra episode of In the Black podcast to talk about this, essentially watching it in real time and saying, we got to talk about this now. And that's just one group of folks that I was watching in real time. I didn't get a chance to really get into the show because I work on Wednesdays producing some radio stuff, which we got into that on the radio show there. But many people literally watching what went down, an insurrection, a group of people, Americans, literally looking to overthrow the country by overturning an election result as it was being certified. Members of Congress having to run and hide from an angry mob that didn't know what exactly was going on. People showing up with guns and Confederate flags and zip ties and restraining devices. People loitering through the halls of Congress, sitting in seats of power, graffiti in different places, acting a fool, and most importantly, live streaming and doing selfies of them doing very, very stupid things. As you'll see probably coming up in next week's podcast when we talk about stories that are posted now, there is people who literally outed themselves live on the internet are being arrested for doing something that, in all practical purposes, is extremely stupid. And their defense is that the president told them to do it. And the president's defense is, well, people really shouldn't go do things like that. And the flip-flopping and all the crazy stuff. What I have said, and the reason why it's so big that Big O and the In the Black podcast cover this, is I believe on my very first time being on their podcast, we were talking. I was trying to do my personal development thing because I was trying to shift out of. I'd basically gotten fired from radio and was trying to shift out of the news stuff and trying to do more of the personal development stuff. And my big thing was, Donald Trump's going to be our president. What do we do about it? How do we survive this? And I said, there is no way, no how, all those people who work in government for reals, for life, who will be around whenever Donald Trump is gone, we're going to let this man do something so horrible that it will tear the nation apart. There are enough checks and balances that all these people who are power hungry, that want to be president sometime themselves or want to make sure that things work out for themselves, won't stoop to any stupid level stuff that Donald Trump would do. And they did. They allowed him to do this. They allowed 4 years of this nonsense and craziness. And the really weird part is 70 million people or 7 million people, whatever, almost half the nation who voted, 7 million people, they believe that this guy was good enough for a second term. If what happened this week isn't the final proof, with 2 weeks left in your job, that you're not qualified to do a job, then I am at a total loss. I don't understand what's going to happen. And there are people who still want him to change the numbers so he can be president again, and if not, run again in 4 years. If being bad at your job isn't enough to show how bad you are at your job, but literally inciting a riot for people who don't have enough common sense to realize what they're doing is what they're doing, and then trying to explain it away. One guy got fired because he got caught on camera walking around with his badge from work on. Well, I won't say how dumb that is. There's people a lot more dumb than that. Social media right now is a complete cesspool of just insanity. And we have to blame ourselves for that. We allowed this. And the answer is not to pull ourselves off of social media. It is to do better and be better. And to do better and be better than those who refuse to do better and be better. There is so much I want to say about this. And ironically, the story at number 1 is going to roll into this as well. But there's just people who do not understand how to act like proper human beings and polite human beings at that. There's just basic stuff that you should know to do just to stay out of trouble. You can have all the evil, mind-numbingly crazy thoughts that you want to have. As long as you don't let me know that you're having those thoughts, I don't know you're having those thoughts. If you want to out yourself so I know that you're the racist, you're the ignoramus, you're the guy I don't want to be around, that's great. I love it. But if you don't, I'm going to let you live. Let you be. Let you do. You are free to hate me as much as you want to. As I say in these things, this is not a podcast about being black, because I don't I don't view the news and the information and the way this is presented as being blackity black, black, black. But when things come up that are race related, as obvious as some of these things are, they have to be addressed. We stop, we pause, we make note of it. And right now, there are 7 million people who voted for a man who doesn't care about anything but himself, to the point that he would incite a revolution, incite a riot, incite an overthrow of a government, because he's afraid that when he's no longer in this spot, he's going to jail. That's it. No one has to do analysis. That's what he knows this. He is up for so much backlash and trouble because he's a horrible person. He is a horrible person. And there's no denying it. And for some reason, people are ready to give him not only a pass, but to essentially help him along the way for a little piece of power. Not peace of mind, not even total safety, because wiping out your enemy means you're safe. Just being in charge, just having some power, just having some sway, just being able to say you are better than them, or to keep saying you are better than them. You're not going to be able to convince these people that something was wrong, that something was unjust, or actually they believe what's happened to them is unjust, but what happened to them is just process. Process worked, and you move on. You reload, you regame, you come back for the next one and try to do better. And chances are, I mean, total honesty here. This is my total honest opinion. Joe Biden, too old to be president. Kamala Harris, I was not going to vote for her. I did not vote for her in the primaries to be president. I'm not exactly thrilled that she's lined herself up to be the president, essentially the line to be the president, the person to be the next president if Joe Biden only goes one term. I'm not keen on that at all. But this is the game that we play, and this is the person that they put up, and going up against someone like Donald Trump. Not that Joe Biden isn't qualified to handle business. Not that Kamala Harris is not qualified to handle business. They were not the choices that I wanted. But over Donald Trump, they are infinitely better than what we have right now and what we're dealing with right now. And we've got less than 2 weeks, and people are wondering if this crazy guy is going to start firing off nuclear missiles because he just doesn't get it. 6 combined headlines made this story where it is, super story, but the top headline was essentially in the same range anyway. So we would have been talking about it regardless. But because it was such a big story this week, I'm spending a little extra time on it. We usually don't do extra commentary on stories just throughout the lines because it's how the podcast works. But I wanted to get something a little bit extra to make sure the gravity of what happened this week was, what little point I have in the internets to kind of mark my spot in this. I want to make sure that people know directly how this works. I mean, people sometimes question where I go with things because I work in conservative talk radio. So I work with people who are shouting the nonsense and the other side that, hey, maybe these folks are actually just Antifa trying to cause trouble, when the superstars of the right-wing movement are the ones on camera live streaming it. Literally, a state representative who just got elected a couple weeks ago is out there running around showing that he's a part of this deal. An elected official is out there trying to overthrow the government. This is big. This is much bigger than me. And if I had a bigger platform and more time to kind of process it, I'd probably have something more eloquent to say. But I just wanted to make sure that this got on the record from my point of view. And hopefully it was something that makes sense. That, some this podcast is recording the way I do this. Sometimes it gets a little lost and crazy in translation. And I apologize at times for not being as focused as I need to be or not as prepared as I need to be. But I do appreciate everyone who keeps pulling into this one and this weird notion that it's not all about the top stories or the stories that network news has all day long, but sometimes going deeper into things that mean a little bit more because they're more closer to what people say. But this story this week, this thing, like I said, this thing had me out of words within a few hours, and I was at this point done. This is not the hundreds of officers standing on the Capitol steps while Black Lives Matters walk down the street. This is not the National Guard tossing tear gas to clear out a peaceful protest that was pretty quiet, to make sure the president had safe passage to walk across the street and take a picture with an upside down Bible in front of a church. That was, of course, that photo op was, of course, condemned by essentially everybody, including the military that was used to clear the streets. But let's move on to the story at number one. And number one always gets specific fanfare for being the top story. And this is a story that we need to talk about as well. Sunday, the 3rd of January is when we posted this one for you guys to see, and at least this version we have. Bump in response from the number 2 story, 58.08%. A bump in response from the number 10 story, Tom Herman being fired from the head football coach spot at Texas, 934%. And part of the problem now is, like you thought I was on a roll. Part of the problem is I'm drinking carbonated water today, which makes even less sense while I'm recording something. But I've got a cup of coffee, half cup of coffee. It's cold, I'd like cold coffee. This is not an endorsement. I just saw these today and I think we'll try something flavored, try to go with that. But the Walmart Clear American, which is basically clearly Canadian from back in the day, Fuji apple, this is what I have right now, is delicious, crisp, clean, no caffeine, 0 calories per serving, 10 calories per bottle, and get you a little bit of that fizz if you're looking for drinking more, staying hydrated, drinking more water, but looking for something that's kind of crisp and sweet, all that stuff. All right. So, like I said, this is a process. I'm going to check this gap just to make sure it's okay. At U.S. Capitol Building, Trump cabinet members discussing involving 25th Amendment, sources say. The update to the... That's good enough. So, response from number 10 story. Tom Herman being fired from the head football coach spot at Texas. 934%. All right. Not quite final stretches. We do have to go into, we'll do the top story. From there, I've been kind of skipping out and not doing well, but from there we talk about some stats. This the engagement numbers, the Facebook and Twitter numbers, is kind of pump those things up. And then we go on to the almost relevant story of the week at number 200. This is one that is going to bring back some good memories to the folks my age, middle 40s and beyond, who remember the greatness that is the 80s, not being nostalgic, but being just because it's how we lived through. This is going to bring up some fond memories and some sad memories as well. But let's go back to, places everyone seen, back to where we're going in wrapping up the number 1 story. And the bumper response from the story at number 200, we call that the almost relevant story of the week. We'll tell you what that is in moments. This one is more responsive than that one at the very, very bottom by 29,566%. Your headline at number 1 this week: Soho Karen Maya Ponsetto, 22, was arrested for refusing to leave a 5-star Beverly Hills hotel while drunk with her mom, months before she attacked Black Boy, 14, over her stolen iPhone in NYC. Why is that title so long? Well, because we pulled it off of one of the British tabloid websites, The Guardian, and they do that. They do those really long intros when you go to their websites and pull their information. So sometimes when we post those stories, we shorten it, we rewrite it, we take a headline from other source, and we use that source. But we just pulled that whole thing because it explained the entire situation in one headline. Now, about 2 weeks ago, the woman we're calling the Soho Karen, her name is Maya Ponsetto, accused a black teenager at a New York hotel of stealing her phone. That's it. Black teenager. Hey, kid, give me back my phone. You've got my phone. I don't have your phone. You've got my phone. That kid has my phone. Get me back. That happened. Caught on camera, because these things are caught on camera. Later to find out that the phone was lost in her Uber. She didn't even come in with the phone. But there's some kid wandering around when she realizes her phone is gone, and that kid stole her phone, per Maya. We found out later in the scenario, or specifically this week, that a few months back, she got into a little altercation of such at a big deal hotel back in Beverly Hills while hanging out with her mother, just in family, and actually got arrested for refusing to leave the area. Disorderly conduct. She's 22. She's 22. She's acting a fool just all over the place, apparently. This happened, months ago. So she has a record of just being a rabble-rouser in general. Maybe she's distraught over her phone being lost. There you go. But to essentially assault another person, and who happens to be a young black kid, because he was there when she realized her phone was gone, is an issue. Now, what we're not going to address right now, we'll maybe address it next week if it pops up. She's actually been arrested for this incident, and she was arrested hours after they aired an interview with her and Gayle King, who for some reason gets a whole lot of crazy people to talk on the record in front of cameras about this thing. And watching her doing the interview, if you've not seen the interview, look for that, and we'll see if that pops up within the top 10 next week, of her just being dismissive of just life in general, and just of black people in general, and Gayle King, who's right there in front of her, and having her lawyer present, who, of course, looked like she really, really wanted to kill her client at the moment, and wearing a hat that said daddy for some reason. There was the influenza kid from a couple years ago, a kid who killed people in a car accident, but was given a lighter sentence because he was so spoiled that the judge determined, based on the court, based on the lawyers, the judge determined that based on how the lawyer was playing the case, that the kid was so screwed up and did not quite understand how the world worked. He had so much influence that was kind of thrown onto him. He was so sheltered that he could not understand the gravity of taking responsibility. And he got a lighter sentence for it. Put that with this case right here. A 22-year-old, air quotes, white woman is using privilege, and as a lot of people in commentary have said, weaponizing that privilege on purpose to get her way and to just accost people and get out of any responsibility. She lost her phone. She accused the first person that she saw of stealing it because he fit a profile that maybe he would steal a phone. And we're supposed to let her go. As we said, she was arrested for the altercation. Would she be arrested if she didn't put her hands on the boy? I don't know. But this is a person who deserves to be shunned for the rest of her life. Whether she will be, I don't know. Whether she will mea culpa, I don't know. Whether she will actually come to terms with just how horrible of a person that she is, those words I just said, and her heart will grow three sizes one night and she'll be a greater person, I don't know. But Soho Karen and a lot of the Karens and just people of just assumed privilege, and the privilege is assumed mostly because of skin color and perceived reality of people who don't fit that mold, need to go someplace. Need to go someplace far, far away and realize that we, the collective we, not the black we, but the collective we of the world just want to go to work, come home, hug our kids, and watch a little Netflix. We don't need all this drama. We don't need all this angst, all this strife. It's not worth it. We are 1 week into 2021, and this is the nuts insanity that we're dealing with. So there you go. This was top story of the week. And there's the commentary for two stories, making this a very, very heavy episode for this week. So let's do what we can to wrap things up. But before we get to the almost relevant story of the week, which is a sad one as it is, and another case of my childhood literally falling apart in front of me, let's talk about the numbers, the engagement for this week. Top story this week on the Soho Karen took engagement numbers of 13.04%. That means 13% of all the responses from everything we had this week went to that story. On top of that, the number two story was 8.25% of all engagement, which is very, very much out of place, very, very much over the top for the week. So what we have, the top 10 stories this week took 44.48% of the engagement. About 45% of all the stories that people touched this week were in the top 10. Now, normally that number is somewhere around 30 and not 45. So that tells you just how big the stories were this week. And they were slightly overinflated because of the big super story number 2. But that didn't really make the big difference. It was just that much impact for the stories, the numbers for this week. Oh, I got so into stuff. I forgot to tell you what things going on. The top Twitter story is normally the top story because Twitter runs the gamut. This week, top Twitter and top Facebook story was the number one story. It took off leaps and bounds on both social media platforms, which is why it was such a large gap between it and everything else. Facebook needs some help this week. Only 10.96, 11% basically of engagement on Facebook, which could be better, which means 89.04, basically 9% of engagement on the other side for Twitter. We like more Facebook engagement. That if that happens, it usually means the numbers are higher. Numbers are more or less where they are normally are, so we appreciate that. The almost ran stories that didn't quite make it into the top 10 took up 5.11%, which is normally about what the stories that aren't quite there take up every single week. And the story at the number 200 at the bottom this week, taking up 0.04%, which is actually slightly high, normally about 0.03%. So there you go. There's a trend. Your headline for this story, and I forgot to pull it up. So let me pull it up so I can read from it. We are almost done, folks. We're going to wrap up the podcast. I'll say a couple things and then wrap things up. Let me know how my little rant, which was not well, it was planned to be there. I was, like I said, I wanted to record this because I want to make sure I got something to use on the Capitol siege, but wasn't planned in the response. So hopefully it wasn't too stuttery, if that's a real word. And the thing on the New York lady assaulting the kid because she's an idiot, that wasn't planned as well. I basically get to those things and then sort of roll with it. The way that was presented was not planned as well, but yeah, it's been 7 days, 9 days at this point, and we've already lost our security deposit on the year. This year is already all sorts of weird. All right, so I've pulled up the story. I'm going to play back where I was. Only about 0.03%, so there you go. There's a trend. Your headline for this story, the audio. The recording's at 49 minutes, but I think I rolled this for, well, no, I didn't because I had to stop and restart again. So this is going to be a longer edition of the podcast. It usually used to run about 55 minutes with the 3 segments and when I was kind of on task, but obviously today I'm not all that on task. So now it's running about 35 minutes. This one's going long. This one was going long. It's going long in recording, so I'm talking to you. But I appreciate everybody who does this. Send me your love or hate via however route you want to, email, in the comments, in the chats, and I will take all comments. I'll take all comments personally. Yes, I will. Take all the comments and all the feedback to heart. Let's pull it that. Let's roll this thing. Marion Ramsey, Broadway and Police Academy actress, dies at 73. We pulled this from people.com and was posted on Friday, the 8th of January. So the main reason why this one is a very low ranking is because it got posted so late into the numbers, not a lot of time to gain traction. Not much chance of this one gaining much traction for next week, but it was in range so far to be out of range, which is why we're talking about it now as the almost relevant story of the week. Here are some lines from the story from People magazine. Broadway and Police Academy actress Marion Ramsey is dead. She was 73. Ramsey died in her home in Los Angeles on Thursday morning, according to The Hollywood Reporter. Her management team at Rogers Paul Inc. did not immediately respond to People's request for a comment. Quote, Marion carried with her a kindness and permeating light that instantly filled the room upon her arrival, Roger Paul Inc. wrote in a statement obtained by THR. That's The Hollywood Reporter. The dimming of her light is already felt by those who knew her well. We will miss her and always love her, the statement included. The actress is best known for her performance as Officer Laverne Hooks in the Police Academy film franchise, beginning with 1984 film Police Academy, starring Steve Guttenberg, Kim Cattrall, and G.W. Bailey. She went on to reprise the role for Police Academy 2, The First Assignment, 1985, Police Academy 3, Back in Training, 1986, Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol, 1987, Police Academy 5, Assignment Miami Beach, 1988, and Police Academy 6, City Under Siege, 1989. I will say that Citizens on Patrol, the 1987 version, my personal favorite. Ramsey was also known for her Broadway performances in shows like Hello, Dolly and the Los Angeles production of The Little Shop of Horrors. She appeared in the production of Miss Muffet and with Bette Davis, as well as Harold Prince's Grind and Ubio, according to THR. The actress was born in Philadelphia in 1947 and began acting as early as 1976 when she appeared in The Jeffersons as Tracy Davis and landed a recurring role in Bill Cosby's sketch comedy show Cos, according to Essence. The story goes deeper into this one, so you can go deeper into all the things she's done by going to our website, thisisaconversation.com. Click on the link for this week's podcast. That's, of course, week ending January the 9th, 2021, and you can go and see a link to every single story we had posted this week, not just the ones we covered. Click the link of the week for the website, and you can see every story, so you can kind of basically gauge what stories we did not get in because of arrangement. Yes, if you want to check out what's that story, number 75, 123, or 87, you can see on your own. But for us, even though it's been a long one, we are officially done for the week. Thank you so much for joining me for another week of recapping stories and for doing most of the work for me. That is telling me what stories I have for script. I tell you every single week. As much as I love me some Anderson Cooper, he does not tell me what to talk about. You do. You go to your social media and you respond to what we're talking about, either on Facebook or Twitter, as you engage in the stories, liking them, loving them, hating them, sharing them, being involved with the stories. Every 50 minutes we post them. The higher they get engagement, the higher the score they get. Facebook, look for us at thisistheconversation.com. Click on the blue speech bubble thing. And on Twitter, th_conversation. Email the show at theconversationinbox@gmail.com and let me know what we can do better, what we should just stop doing, and what we're doing pretty good right now. Conversation Project, thisistheconversation.com, and this podcast, the weekly wrap up with Jake Cleveland Payne, is powered by you. That means we need your resources. We need your money. If you don't ask, you don't get. So we ask, if this is something that is quality entertainment for you, check out our website, thisistheconversation.com, and click at the partnerships link. And if you feel up to being a partner, find a way to partner up with us so we keep things going. Keep the lights on, if you will. Also, click on any link you see in our products, whether it's our newsletter, it's inside of the feed every day, or at the website. Those are affiliate links that allow us a little piece of what you buy. It costs you nothing extra, and it like we said, keep things going. But the most important thing you can do is make sure you are subscribed to the podcast and sharing it with other people who are into the news and want to know what stories are the real conversational stories, not just what's stuck in the Chiron as the top stories that never really break. They just keep on bending. That's a horrible joke, but you get the gist of it. Some things get missed out while you're watching cable news or watching the mainstream media or watching what you're being told are the big stories. Sometimes the stories aren't so big, but they're a lot more heartfelt and conversational, and you'll get a chance to see them if you tune in with us and follow us on our feeds. Once again, thank you so much for being part of the community, being part of the gang, and giving me something to talk about. This does not happen without you. You literally give me the script, and then you respond to what the tops is and make sure that I am keeping things on the up and up. So thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for joining us for another great week of a podcast. Even if it wasn't such a great week out there and great week of news, we are already gathering things, as we said, 24 hours a day. Every 50 minutes, we're posting something out there for you to react to. So we are literally working this weekend to prepare for things, and you will see what happens, what stories we already have, and what stories to come we'll be talking about next weekend in the podcast. So until next weekend, I'm Jay Cleveland Payne, and this has been the weekly wrap up. We will do this again in 7 days. So I'm saving it right now immediately. As I said, there's not much editing on this end because it takes so long to record, and I'm in a rush to get it done. And I have a lot of things going on this afternoon, so it's going to be later when this happens. But this is real time, so I save it immediately. I will do some processing, which I will do as I talk and move. I don't really listen to it because it is what it is. I'll listen to bits and pieces as I do the final mixing with the music and the publishing from when I do it from home, and then I'll hear things that I'll be horrified about. But I don't really re-record because the sound. The reason why I record here in the big mic is because I get lots of space. I have a computer here to read off of and things to read from, and I have what's going on. And the big mic and the big processing is also kind of cool. So I take advantage of the fact that I am here and it gets quiet in the afternoons from there. So what do you think? You let me know in the chats wherever you are. You can email me if you want to as well. Anybody that popped in, I see that my Big O, who I've talked about anything, is here. Thank you so much for the love, my brother. And the beautiful Christina with a K, who I'm going to try to once again convince that we need to do some more podcasting together. That's my wife. She popped in as well in the chat that I can see. Other chats I can't quite see, and you may see this thing in the future. So if it's not around 3 o'clock on Saturday the 9th, then I'm about to sign off, and you're watching this thing sometime past when I did this live. Thank you so much for joining me in this fire drill. Thank you so much for those of you who are going to listen to it as a podcast on its own, because that's the way it's meant to be heard. And thank you for all the folks who support me in any manner, whether it's on this podcast or other podcasts along the way, or some of the writing going on since I'm here. Check out my main website, jclevelandpayne.net, where I am not so much writing every day like I had planned to, but I'm writing more articles, more daily stuff that's out there for you to see. I'm going to make sure to get all that one out. That was a big one. That was a nice one. jclevelandpayne.net for things there. I'll go to jclevelandpayne.net/podcast, and you can see essentially all the podcasts are live right now. Oddly enough, I'm trying to do a few newer things. I'm trying to be more serious and more political and more politically minded for this year. So a couple projects you will see is the Now What Network, which is supposedly going to hold some of these elected officials' feet to the fire, which we had some big plans to start talking about next week. Yeah, we have to revamp a couple things, but that's happening as well. Along with that, a new personality, if you will. I'm revamping one of my older Twitter feeds and using that as a launch off for something called Citizen Pain. That's actually a rehash of a rehash of a rehash. But essentially, I'm going to be more forceful in my opinions and kind of state exactly what I feel, and be not as political. I have established myself. I have basically declared myself not falling in line with any of the parties at this point. I've essentially registered as a Republican, and my sort of joke about that is because their ballots are usually shorter. There's less people on the ballots. But here in Arkansas, where I live, where I've lived for 18 years, you cannot vote in a primary as an independent. You have to vote for someone in on a party side. So if there's no judges on the ballots, or there's no independent type folks on the ballots, no non-party affiliations on the ballots, or there's no resolutions, there's no reason to go vote. I can't vote for who I want to be in the primary to go to election, because you have to vote. You have to pull a specific party to vote for. So you have to choose on that level. And so because of that, I've roll right, just slightly right of center. So I roll more conservative, slightly conservative than not in most cases. So I went with the Republican ballots. However, I did vote for Clinton, then Bush, then Obama, and then of course the last Clinton. And this last case for the combination of Biden and Harris, which, if you listen to the podcast, not exactly thrilled that that was my choice, but that was my choice. And that's basically it. So this has been a long recording and a long day, so we're going to wrap this thing up. Thank you so much for joining in this thing. One of the things I'm really, really bad about is ending things. So essentially, everything I do now has the same ending, which is being, I guess, we're refining as we're going along. But congratulations for waking up. This morning, you opened your eyes. You blinked a couple times. You wiggled your fingers and toes, and you sat up. You got out of bed. And if you're watching this, obviously, you pulled out a phone or got to a computer, or someone handed a computer to you, or they had it rolling on their phone really loud, and you're wondering, why is this guy yakking about this stuff? That means you woke up this morning with life, with breath in your lungs and blood flowing through your body, and the ability to move your muscles and get out of bed and go do something, and in the right mindset that is like, hey, I can get up and go do something. And you had resources. You had enough resources, or someone nearby you with resources, to listen to me yak for 2 hours. So now that we've established that you're having a great day because you're having a day, Go do something great. Doesn't be massively great, but just go do something nice for someone. Go do something and don't look for any sort of return. Just go do something simple. Tip somebody 30% when you go out today because they could probably use that. Show a smile in your eyes when you're wearing your mask because people can tell. Trust me, people can tell when what facial expressions I'm making under my mask when they look in my eyes. I hear it all the time. Take a few hours where you're just not being jerkish. And if you are a jerk, like that you normally are a jerk, then, more power to you. But just take a little jerk break for a little bit and do something kind of non-jerkish for somebody. And, of course, love the people who don't deserve a lot of your love, which is going to be a hard one to do for me. But, yeah, show a little extra love and kindness on a day where we had a week and like a decade in a week. I'm out. Thank you so much for being a part of this. I am very, very late for getting home today because this thing took a whole lot more time than it should have. But thank you so much for joining in, however you're joining. And if you are popped into this thing, then I consider you a friend and family. And thank you so much. We out.